Ireland's Classic Hits Radio presents A Parent's Guide to Social Media.
So this week on A Parent's Guide to Social Media, we're joined by the Minister for Justice, Helen McEntee, and we're going to be discussing the Harassment, Harmful Communications and Related Offences Act, better known as Coco's Law. And I know a lot of our listeners will be familiar with this. This law criminalises the sharing of or threatening to share intimate images of a person. And you know what? We're seeing a lot of advertising on the telly now as well. It makes it an offence to send deep fakes, meaning an intimate image claiming to be of another person, even if the image is not actually of them. The legislation was enacted by Minister McEntee in 2021, and she's with us today.
Hi, how are things?
Good. First of all, can you tell me a bit about Nicole Fox-Fennan, or Coco? Her mum was with us on the radio station over the last few years talking about this, but for anyone who isn't familiar with the story, can you tell us a bit about her and the legislation, why it's named after her?
Yeah, well look, Coco or Nicole Fox, but she was known as Coco by her family, was a young woman, and unfortunately when she was 21 she took her own life. She had been subjected to quite severe bullying, and it had been in person, but also it had translated online as well. And she was, according to her mum Jackie and all of those who loved her, a gorgeous, bright, bubbly young woman who had her whole life ahead of her. But the bullying and what was happening to her was just so difficult that she took her own life. And her mum really campaigned to do what she could to try and prevent it from happening to anybody else. Yeah. I think it's the easiest way to put it. Her mum has campaigned tirelessly to make sure that this legislation was passed, but also at a European level that it can be enacted across other European countries as well, which has since been taken on, which is wonderful. But Nicole, like a lot of people, was on social media, and I think we all can agree social media is wonderful, and the way in which we can communicate with each other in a way like never before. It's fantastic, but with that comes challenges as well, because we are all so easily accessible to each other. We can communicate immediately, we can talk to each other, but also about each other in very open and very public ways. And this legislation is important because it's not just about sharing of intimate images. So it criminalises, as you said at the outset, it criminalises sharing or distributing or posting an intimate image of another person where you have intent to cause harm, so where you want to cause harm or damage, or even threatening to do it. So even if you don't post it or distribute it, if you threaten to do it, it is a criminal offence. It also then criminalises where somebody posts something without consent, even if they didn't mean to do it. You'll often hear this excuse, well, I didn't mean any harm, or it was just a bit of fun. That can equally be as devastating for a person, even if there wasn't.
Yeah, it's just not good enough. It's not good enough. It's
not good enough.
No. And it's funny how people, because they're hiding behind a keyboard, they think that that's fine. Like, they wouldn't say it to the person in person if they were standing in front of them, but they think it's okay to do this on a phone or whatever. So how does this Coco's Law, how is this going to protect people then who are targeted? What happens?
Well, for the two offences that I've just mentioned, if a person is found guilty, the first offence where you intend to cause harm has a maximum prison sentence of up to 7 years. So it's quite a severe penalty, and an unlimited fine can be applied to a person. For the second offence, where somebody may have shared it but not setting out to cause harm, still potentially up to a year in prison and a lesser fine. You also then have new legislation, and this is, I suppose, specifically where Coco's situation or Nicole's situation came into effect, where somebody is being communicated to or about. So where there's threatening or abusive behaviour and words and commentary online, it doesn't have to be directed to that person, and it doesn't have to be constant. Because what we've seen over time, and this is the same as the stalking legislation I introduced, one single act, one single comment, one single threatening or abusive behaviour can have a massive impact on a person. So it criminalises, again, that type of communication where it's about a person, but also I've extended out the harassment laws, which mean that, again, it's not just directly talking to a person and intimidating a person directly. You could have a group of people, a group of young people who are constantly talking about, putting down, bullying another individual without actually directing it to them. And that's now actually increased from 7 years to 10 years in prison. So these are really, really serious offences. And what's most important about this law, so we've passed it, and to be honest, there's been quite a few successful prosecutions. People are coming forward. We're getting content taken down. But following the enactment of it, I invested and put money into making sure that schools have this as part of their programme, particularly in secondary schools, making sure that we have the campaigns that you've mentioned communication, so on TV, online, on radio, that we're actually highlighting this and letting, in particular, young people know that this is a serious offence, because what you want to do is prevent this type of behaviour. To your point, it never ceases to amaze me how people can behave differently online, how they think they can say things online that, they would never dream of saying to a person in person in front of them. But behaviours change, so it's really important at the earliest stage possible with young people who are now on phones much earlier, they're on social media, that they know from the earliest stage possible what it is to be courteous, what it is to be kind, what it is to be responsible when you're on social media. That's what's so important about Coco's Law, that we're trying to change people's behaviours, educate young people, while at the same time making sure that somebody who carries out what is a really, really awful crime, that there is people held accountable at the end of the day.
There's Minister for Justice Helen McEntee.
This is a parent's guide to social media. You can catch up on all the episodes, which are available as a podcast. Just search Ireland's Classic Hits Parent's Guide. This has been a Sound and Vision initiative, funded by Comashún na Meán, with the television licence fee.